Hey, punk rocker. The other day I posted a video in my garb as a handyman, and it is understood that those of us on our side of the threadbare velvet ropes that keeps our little scene separated from the rest of the algorithm often have to have a day job, a side gig. And in my role as a handyman, just the other day, I had multiple tasks to perform. Stay tuned. This is writing advice. Who am I to be giving writing advice? I am Justin DePago, LA Gothic, Neo-Noir, hard-boiled punk rock, indie author. And I've been doing this for a little while. And I am happy to share what I've learned as an author with you. I had multiple tasks to perform. Among other things, I had to repair a garden hose that was leaking. Now, there are multiple ways to attack a leaking garden hose depending on where the leak is occurring. And in this case, it was right up at the nozzle. So there's a brass fitting that fits inside the end of the hose, and it has a little neck on it with barbs that hold it into the rubber of the hose. Well, that whole assembly was just leaking everywhere, and instead of purchasing a new hose, it made sense to just repair it. So the first step was to remove the existing fitting that was on the end of the hose to see why it was leaking. And what I discovered was that this hose had been repaired before, and not very well. It isn't easy to get that fitting down into the rubber hose. Stay with me. This is writing advice. It isn't easy to get that brass fitting down into the rubber hose, but you have to have a nice snug fit. Otherwise, water, doing what it likes to do, will find the path of least resistance and will squirt out the sides of the fitting instead of out the nozzle like you want it to. Well, because it is difficult to get the brass fitting down inside the rubber hose, whoever repaired this hose in the past took a shortcut. And what they did was they made well, let me show you. I took a picture. So you can see that those barbs are exposed. You can see them because they put a slit in the hose. Well, obviously that's never going to work. Now you can see there out of focus on the ground, the screwdriver that I removed the collar that goes around the fitting, and you can see one little piece of the collar on the ground there that grabs onto the hose and the fitting to keep them all tightly in line with each other. So what did I do? Well, I took the brass fitting out, I cut the hose flush, and then I had to force the fitting. Stay with me. This is writing advice. Then I had to force the fitting back down into the hose. And the way that you do that, obviously, isn't to slit the hose, right? What you need to do is you force and force and force. And the hose, luckily, where I was very hot out. So I didn't need to warm up the rubber in order to make it more pliable. But that is an option. But force it down. And one way that you can do that is you can take a screwdriver. The circumference of the handle of the screwdriver has to be more narrow than the threaded fitting that attaches to, let's say, a nozzle that you wanted to screw on there. But it has to be wider than the inside of the brass fid itself, right? So you take the screwdriver, the whole post of the screwdriver goes down into the hose. The handle of the screwdriver is now resting right up against the brass fitting, the flange at the end of the fitting. And then you can take a hammer and tap, 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 and it will slowly move its way down into the hose. And that's exactly what I did. I moved it past both of the barbs, because you have to capture both of the barbs with the rubber hose. And once they're both captured, you can reattach that gray metal collar that you see out of focus in the image. So I got the nozzle down into the hose, reattached the fitting, and it worked beautifully. The whole reason it was discovered that this hose had a leak and the end of it was that it was screwed to another hose to make them into a longer hose. Stay with me. This is writing advice. So there was a problem at that junction. I screwed the one hose to the other hose, turned on the water, and now water flowed cleanly from the end of the repaired hose through the other new hose. And now there was, let's say, 100 feet of hose that you could use. But back to the path of least resistance, because this broken, leaking, badly repaired connection was actually, accidentally, a pressure relief valve. Because what happened was, as soon as the repaired hose was now no longer leaking, a weak spot in the hose way back down the line closer to the spigot started to swell, and within 5 minutes it burst. Sometimes when you're having trouble with the scene or the chapter that you are working on, you can work hard to correct the dialogue, to improve the dynamics of the scene. You can even maybe change up what characters are in the scene, cut somebody, add somebody. But while you're considering all that work that you need to do, while you're working on your edit of that scene, consider this. That scene might not be the problem. The problem is 2 scenes ago, 3 scenes ago, 2 chapters ago. What happened 2 chapters ago that led to this scene being a problem? And why, after all the work you put into this revised scene, is it still leaking water all over the place? Sometimes you do have to do all the work to fix that scene before you realize that the problem was further back down the line, earlier in the work, earlier in the draft. But sometimes you can stop and you can ask yourself, how much work should I be doing on this scene? Why am I having so much trouble with this scene? And the answer could be because there's a weak spot 6 feet down the line in the hose, and it's going to burst. And that's what you need to figure out, not the nozzle. Who am I to be giving writing advice? I am Justin DePago, LA Gothic, Neo-Noir, hard-boiled punk rock indie author, and I've been doing this for a little while. And I have learned that being a handyman is a lot like being an author, especially when you are editing. And I am happy to share what I've learned as a handyman and as an author with you.